Good evening. It is December 11th, 7 p.m., and my name is Gary Rakes, and I'm president of the Speedway Town Council, and I welcome all those in attendance here in council chambers, as well as those that might be watching from home or maybe even on YouTube. We welcome all those that tune in this evening. This is our first meeting of the month, and we have a special evening this evening planned with a swearing-in ceremony, and I'm kind of disappointed to see that we must have a fire run, because I saw some guys just walk out of the room, but they're going to do their jobs, and we thank them for that. We'll still move forward that swearing in, but I want to go ahead and introduce those in attendance and participating at the table this evening, and then move along and hold our pledge. To my far right is Councilor Eileen Fisher.
Good evening.
To immediate right is Vice President Council Jeff Matthews.
Good evening, everyone.
To my left is Councilor David Lindsay.
Good evening.
And to his left is Councilor Jason Delisle.
Good evening.
And our town manager, Jacob Blaisdell.
Good evening, Speedway.
And our clerk treasurer, Monty Combs.
Good evening.
And last but not least, our town attorney, Bob Clutter.
Good evening.
So I was going to have one of the firefighters that just left who lead our pledge, but in light of his leaving, I'd ask for Chris Milhorn, who we'll talk about in just a moment, to come forward and lead us in the pledge, please.
I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Thank you, Chris. If you want to stay standing, you are the first item on the agenda, and I'm sure that you have your family here. I'm going to ask our town manager and maybe our fire chief, Bob Fishburn, to maybe come forward and introduce Chris, and then we'll go ahead and forward.
Yeah, Chris Milhorn, as I stated at the last meeting, is our new assistant chief. Chris has 12 years with the department, has served in a variety of different roles, and tonight Clerk Treasurer Monty Combs is going to present his oath. I think his wife is going to participate in that, and then afterward we'd like to get a picture with Jacob and Monty and the two of them. So,
Great. Monty, if you'd do the honors, and if everyone would please rise. This is kind of a special occasion.
I, Chris Milhorn,
Do solemnly swear and affirm
do solemnly swear and affirm
that I will uphold the United States Constitution
that I will uphold the United States Constitution
and the Constitution of the State of Indiana,
and the Constitution of the State of Indiana,
and I will faithfully and impartially
and I will faithfully and impartially
discharge my duties
discharge my duties
as Assistant Chief of the Speedway Fire Department
as Assistant Chief of the Speedway Fire Department
according to law and the best of my ability.
according to law and the best of my ability,
So help me God.
so help me God.
I'm going to get these two with you for a picture.
Chris, or Monty, come around the other side.
If the council wants to stand up too, that'd be a great picture. You guys, great, awesome. You can see the camera, they can see you. Get there, don't want to miss Dave.
Oh, that's fine.
Got it. Thanks.
Chris, before you sit down, just, if you would, maybe introduce your family
Sure.
and a little bit about yourself.
All right. This is my wife, Heather. We've been married for 17 years.
Good job. Looks like it was the right answer. It was a little slow.
Absolutely. This is my son, Merrick. He'll be 10 on Friday. So, and this is, yeah. What do you say? This is my daughter, Abby. She's 14. So, she's a lot of fun. As you guys know, Chris Milhorn. I've been here on the department for 12 years. Like he said, I've served a lot of different roles in the department. I love this department. I've had a great experience here. And I know I'm going to have, an even better experience in this position. So I want to thank all the guys that came from shift. I know, come out here and support me. And I know the other guys had to take off, but that's part of the gig. So I'd like to thank Chief Fishburn for all he's done for me in the last 3 weeks and helping me transition in my new role. So I want to thank all of you. Thank you.
Thank you. Congratulations.
Thank you very much.
Congratulations.
Okay, we're going to allow for just a moment. I think some of the firefighters and those involved are going to exit the room to go back to work. They were still on call, but fortunately, not all of them were called out on a run. Okay, so the third item on the agenda this evening is approval of the town council meeting minutes, and that's from the council meeting on November 27th. Those have been distributed. Are there any changes to those? Hearing none, we'll accept those as distributed. Next item is approval of a memorandum from an executive session of the town council from that same evening, November 27th of this year. Any changes to those? We'll accept those as distributed. Item 5 on the agenda is a public hearing for Resolution 2017-13. It's a resolution regarding the appropriation of additional funds. The agenda says 03, but Jacob, if you go ahead and describe that, please.
Okay, so we're appropriating additional funds. I don't know, Monty, if you want to talk about the details behind it.
Yes, in the MVH laborers, when the budget was made for 2017, there was a back and forth, I think, at the time, and unfortunately, the number for the MVH laborers was dropped by the $20,000. This is the additional appropriation that we'll present to the DLGF tomorrow, showing the addition, and that will balance it out for the year for the laborers' costs as far as payroll is concerned.
Great.
The $40,000 that's included has to do with LRS, and Mark Adam is here from Crow. He can probably explain it probably a little cleaner than I can. So Mark, if you would.
Heck, yeah, that's fine. If he wants to go ahead and do that, and then we'll call for the public hearing in just a moment.
Oh, I'm sorry, okay.
You're fine.
Like Amani said, my name is Mark Ann with Crow Horwath. That $40,000 has to do with the 2013 transportation bonds. There was 3 revenue streams to pay that. There was a debt fund, which is property taxes. A CCD and local road and street also made contributions to it. There was the budget estimates for miscellaneous revenues came in lower than anticipated. So what this is just an additional out of local road and street to have additional funds to make that bond payment.
Great.
Thank you, Mark.
So before we move to a public hearing, we need to have a resolution. So I'll be glad to hear a motion.
Mr. President, I move that we approve Resolution 2017-13.
Second.
We have a motion for Resolution 2017-13 as was presented, and we'll hold off on calling for a vote on that, and I'll go ahead at 7:08 and call the public hearing on this resolution. This is standard procedure when we have a change to the budget like this. We'd like to make sure the public has an opportunity to hear, to speak on this. So is there anyone in the public that would like to speak to this point? Okay, hearing none, I'll close the public hearing at 7:09 and move forward with comments from the council regarding this resolution. Hearing none, I'll go ahead and call for the vote. All those in favor of approving the resolution with the appropriation of additional funds, say aye.
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 Opposed? This resolution carries 5-0.
Thank you, Mr. President.
So we move straight to item 7 on the agenda, Ordinance 1300. Jacob?
Yes, Mr. President, so this is Ordinance 1300, which passed on first reading. It is now up for second reading. It is also more commonly known as the 2018 salary ordinance for the town. There are a couple of changes I'd like to point out from first reading, some things that were identified between the first reading and today. Two of them don't have anything to do with the money as much as the source of the funds. Previously, my salary was in part going to come from redevelopment commission funds. We do not do it that way and do not wish to do it that way. So that has changed. There was also part of the funds for the council salary, which, as Councilor Lindsay noted last time, is not being increased for 2018. That, again, the source of the funds is changing to be to not include any general funds. So that's one change. And then there was one salary item in public safety that just had not gotten increased, and so was going to be relatively, was going to be flat. So that was an issue that was identified and has been corrected in this version. So I think that summarizes everything, the changes that we have from first reading, and with your approval on second reading, it will become an ordinance.
Mr. President, I make a motion that we accept or pass ordinance 1300 on second reading with the changes as documented by our town manager.
Second.
We have a motion on ordinance 1300. This is for second reading. Any questions or comments by the council?
Jacob, let's talk about your pay for a second. We had talked
Oh,
about.
this is a good time, yes.
We had talked about how, we had talked about how it was divided up, your pay. The previous town manager was paid partially through the redevelopment. Can you explain why that is and why we are changing it now?
Yeah, so I was just saying the previous town manager was doing a little bit of double duty, doing a lot of work for redevelopment. As I've noted, a decent amount of my time does get spent on redevelopment, as Tim knows, but it's now that there's a full-time redevelopment director in place, it's not really as significant of a time demand for the town manager, so I'm no longer getting paid from those funds.
Great. Thank you. Any other questions or comments from the council? Any questions or comments from the audience on this matter? Hearing none, I'll call for the vote. All those in favor of approving 1300 as presented on second reading, say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? This carries 5-0. You still have a job, Jacob.
All right.
So on to ordinance 1301, which is item 8 and 9.
Yes, so this is ordinance 1301. This is actually pertaining to a salary ordinance as well, but the salary ordinance from 2017. And this version, this amendment corrects, again, for the council salary as well as my salary, the same changes that I noted from first reading to second reading in the 2018 ordinance. We would like to amend into the 2017 salary ordinance, which is consistent with how the pay has been conducted for 2017.
Great.
Mr. President, I move that we approve ordinance 1301 on first reading.
Second.
We have a motion to approve 1301 as presented by the town manager. Any comments or questions?
May sound like a simple question, I hope. The monies, the way this is being changed, will those monies then be reimbursed back to SRC from what we're changing? Or is this just to show?
So my understanding is that the way what we're changing it to is how things have been conducted in practice.
Okay.
So this corrects the disconnect. The intent was to do it as we've discussed, but it hadn't been in the actual ordinance.
Okay, all right.
And if I may add,
Sure.
once he did come on board, we did not pay any out of the SRC once he came in on the team. And so it's just correcting the ordinance to
Okay.
show accordingly.
Thank you.
Again, just to reiterate what we said in the previous ordinance discussion, in 2016, we didn't have a redevelopment director. We utilized a lot of the town manager's time in 2016 for redevelopment issues, and therefore the reason for paying out of that. But we knew heading into this year we wouldn't, and it just wasn't reflected in the ordinance originally. So we're just making it correct. Okay, any comments or questions on this from the audience? Great. Go ahead and call for the vote. All those in favor of approving 1301 on first reading as presented, say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? This carries 5-0. This evening, I learned something in approximately 10 years of being on the council and years of being involved in parks. Our attorney, Bob Clutter, who advises us in a lot of ways, taught me something new this evening we've never practiced. So can you tell us about why we don't need to do the next one?
Yes, if an ordinance passes unanimously, a second reading is not required.
By state law?
By state law.
Great.
So you can certainly have a second reading. A lot of times you do, particularly if it's a very contentious matter or there's a lot of public input. I don't think there is tonight, but it's kind of a time-saving thing for local governments. But yeah, it's a state statute that provides if an ordinance obviously has to pass unanimously, but if it does, then a second reading is required.
Does the intent need to be stated on first reading that this is, if it passes unanimously, that it will become an ordinance?
No.
No. So technically, we passed the ordinance, salary ordinance twice? Okay.
No, that's okay. Yeah.
All right.
I mean, there's certainly no prohibition against having a second reading.
Yeah.
Okay.
It's kind of the council's option. If you just don't want to have a second reading and it passes unanimously, there's no requirement to.
Yeah. For me personally, I think there are certain matters that are pretty cut and dry. And this might be an example of one of those. There are other times where there is debate or conversation, and it still is a unanimous
Absolutely.
vote on first reading, and we want to give the public an opportunity to make comment before second reading.
Absolutely, and that's always at your discretion,
Right.
and I'm sure is well received. But as you mentioned, if it's strictly a ministerial matter like this is, then a second reading wouldn't be necessary.
So I'll take a motion from the council to either go forward with second reading or a motion to do otherwise.
If I understood him right, we don't need a motion. We don't need to charge it up. Is that correct?
That's correct.
So I'm looking to the rest of council because I want to give full input to the rest of council. Everybody's in agreement with moving forward with second reading? Great. That's what I wanted to hear. Thank you. Item 10, approval of claims and utility adjustments, and a general report from our clerk treasurer.
Thank you, Mr. President. The claims before you tonight represents our payments to be done from November, I'm trying to get into May already, November 25th until December the 8th. And as I usually say, and most times, it's business as usual, and appreciate your approval.
Mr. President, I move we approve the claims as presented to us.
Second.
We have a motion to approve the claims as presented by the clerk treasurer. Any comments or questions? Any from the audience? All those in favor of approving the claims as presented, say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? These carry 4-0-1.
Also before you are the utility adjustments for the same period of time of November 25th through December the 8th. Not many, if you will, but your approval would be appreciated.
Mr. President, I move that we approve the utility adjustments as presented.
Second.
We have a motion to approve the utility adjustments. Any comments or questions? Any from the audience? All those in favor of approving the adjustments as presented by the clerk treasurer, say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Those carry 5-0. Now, moving on to reports from department supervisors. Economic Development, Tim Gropp.
Good evening, council. Just a few updates for you this evening. One, the SRC, with a lot of assistance from Wendell, is finishing up moving all the dirt that was located behind the Delara plant. So the large pile is almost gone. They're cleaning up some trees along the edging. We're going to put some erosion control up just since we disturbed the dirt there. So that project should be finishing up any time. Then the contractor has started to mobilize at 1426 Main Street for the demolition of that property this week. It should be a 2-day demolition. We were waiting on one last utility confirmation, and then that project should get started. So we're hoping that is done quickly. And that'll be taken down to gravel. We're hoping, depending on how timing goes, and Wendell might be able to tell us better, we're right on the edge of when asphalt plants are going to be closing. So we're really hoping we get this paved before the winter time. So we're we're pushing really hard. Might not happen, might happen, we'll see.
So you don't want a snowy Christmas?
No, whoa. That's putting me on the spot. How many children are watching this? So we're just hoping to get that moving. That'll add several spots in a tough block for parking. I believe the lots that we've already done have made a big difference. This will just add to that. So we're moving as quickly as we can, and then once the demolition's done at 1426, they'll actually be moving to Crawfordsville Road to take down the former Zellman property as well, getting that ready. So we still have a tank to take out of the ground after that and clean that property up. So a lot of movement there. We're finishing up a lot of these projects that have been underway. Everything's moved pretty quickly though, and we haven't had any big issues. So it's good to see those improvements on the Main Street area. A couple other good announcements we had in the last week. The Get-Go gas station up at Speedway Marketplace opened up last week. Really good turnout for that event. It was freezing. I don't want to give away anything. We'll let police and fire discuss. They don't do a ribbon cutting. They do a sub competition. So I'm sure they'll want to brag a little bit about it, so I won't say any more on that. And then also Friday, we were able to join our friends at Bell Racing Helmets, who announced that they will be having a presence at 1330 Main Street, moving some of their operations over from Champaign, Illinois, and over time expanding that footprint here in Speedway, Indiana. It's a great event. We got to go down to PRI with them and stand next to them and the Indiana Economic Development Corporation to do that announcement, and we're excited to have them here in Speedway, Indiana. And I don't know if anyone else wants to add anything to that. All right. Thank you.
Thanks a lot, Tim. Actually, we're going to ask Bob Fishburn, our fire chief, to come forward first. Chief Jim Campbell asked to go second behind him this evening for some reason, something about a sub contest.
Well, I'm not one to brag, so I'm just going to let Chief Campbell talk about that. But to answer your question, yes, we would like a white Christmas. We just want it to be 50 degrees up to about the 23rd. So I'm all for a white Christmas. No, it really was a neat event, and it really was cold. So cold that they let us go in halfway after the sub cutting that Jim and I helped with before they did the sub building competition. And I will say we did have a ringer. You know, our guys cook a little bit more than the police guys, but we did have a former Subway employee who was helping build these subs, who just happens to be a firefighter. So it was actually a lot of fun, and both departments benefited the same amount. You know, they gave us $1,500 each for us to utilize however we can. I was telling Tammy that I think with the tree project, I think the fire department's going to at least do one tree with some of that money and kind of put it back into the community, and we helped the sports teams and different things. So it was a great event. It was fun, but it really was cold, and the firefighters really did win. So just to report on a couple of...
That's a re-gift, is that what you're saying? That's a good thing.
Yeah, that's re-gifting.
That's great.
Yeah, that's great. And Gleaners was a big benefactor too. We have completed all of our work on our AFG grant. We've submitted all of the work. I want to thank Monty for helping us with some of the facts and figures that they requested. Battalion Chief Brian Wyatt pulled all of the data together, and we've gotten it off to the grant writers. We also found out that through our local, our international will actually evaluate and look at the grant after it's written. They have some influence on the AFG grant board, and we're hoping to be able to help with the radio purchase and all of that. With Assistant Chief Chris Milhorn moving into the office, we also had another vacancy. So we have hired, and we just found out today through PERF that Tim Roby, who's one of our former interns actually, has gone through the psychological, physical, all the things that are required. PERF notified us of that today. So he's actually going to be starting next Monday. So he and Jacob Johnson, who just started about 4 weeks ago, will both be in the academy together. IFD is allowing us to send both of those guys. Wayne Township has 4, Speedway has 2, and IFD has a 40-member class. That fire school side of that will start the Tuesday after Martin Luther King Day and run to the beginning of May. So we'll have them for the end of May. We won't have them in the academy for summer, which really helps us on overtime and all those things. And I can't thank, Chief Malone and his staff at the IFD for allowing us to do that, because to be honest, Wayne Township Pike and IFD always allow us to put our guys in their academies, and it really, really helps us get well-trained individuals. So other than that, just year-end things, and wish everybody a Merry Christmas, and thank you. Any questions?
How'd the sub taste?
We didn't taste them. They were going to Gleaners. The police departments might have had a little bit more meat on them than ours, but we did fulfill the minimum requirement. So just want to preface that.
Way to do the minimum.
Well, it's all about winning. It's all about winning. 7 subs. That's pretty good in 3 minutes.
Thanks, Chief Fishburn. And we'll go ahead and have Chief Campbell come up now.
He knows I love him.
So, Chief, you asked for a few to go second, just to be able to,
I want to counterbalance.
yeah.
Due to the ethical standards of the police department and the pending investigation, I can't say a lot. Half their sandwiches didn't have any meat on it. He isn't arguing with me either. It was a neat event, and it was cold, I will give you that. And they did cheat. Starting today and the next 2 days, as you know, we're working with the commission on accreditation for law enforcement agencies. We have 2 assessors here in town. They're going to look at everything: policy, procedures, management, support services, and in a detail that is just unbelievable, actually. We had an open session here earlier. I do want to thank, those people who participated. We had some excellent comments, and again, not directed at me, but to a police department that you can be proud of. But I do want to thank the council. You've been so supportive. I think, for the town to know that they have a police department that utilizes best practices, the professionalism that, 11% of the country law enforcement agencies have this accreditation. So, it means a lot to us, and I think it means a lot to the town. So, it's holiday season. We could talk a lot. You see a lot of material. These are crimes of opportunity, and people just need to be aware of their personal safety. They need to know that there's people out there that's going to take packages out of their cars. They're going to watch for them to leave wherever they're shopping from, taking packages off porches. If you've caught the news, that's kind of an in thing to be doing right now. So I would just encourage people to know that this is a time that you really do need to pay attention, because there's some folks out there that would take whatever they can take. And with that, since we won't make the next council meeting, Merry Christmas.
Thank you.
Thanks, Chief.
Thanks, Chief.
Public Works Director, Wendell Walters.
The competition is great. Good evening, council. Some updates on the town. We've had our first snow event. We've got a little one that's predicted overnight. Everybody be careful. Crews are out, be checking. Working with Jacob on our 2018 projects, trying to get that ready for bid. So we'll try and get that out on the street, bring that back to your attention for approval. 16th and Lyndhurst project is completed, open for business. We do our punch list, our walkthrough on the 18th, and fix anything that's out of the ordinary through construction. Tree removal in the Meadowwood Park is in progress. They are making good progress. Hopefully, we'll get to first of the year and have things in shape up there, is our hopes. All weather dependent. Our Hawk signal at Hickorywood and High School come online today. I have to compliment the crews for getting out there. We had a delay on getting the pole in, but they made up the time. This is a joint effort with the City of Indianapolis and our school district. Appreciate their help and input on that, and we are up and running, and police and myself will be up in the morning monitoring, seeing if we need to make any changes time-wise. The B&O Trail project will be, they will be opening bids on December 13th. We should be notified that day or the next day on what type of bids we got in, and hopefully we will get all that paperwork done. And January, February, we'll start to work on that project. And hopefully this time next year, next year, we're up and running on that one. Just some quick information on the Wilshaw project. We had a on-site meeting. It looks like IPL is going to start doing their work the first week of January, so we're going to have some restrictions at 16th and Main where they're coming across and underground there. So we'll let everybody know in advance when that starts happening so we can get traffic around up there. So kind of quick and catch you up.
Great.
Thank you.
Thank you very much. Hey, Wendell, while you're here, I didn't see Norm in the audience this evening. Is
Yes,
there anything to report
he was
his-
out sick today.
Okay. Is there anything to report that you knew of?
No updates, no problems at the plant.
Okay, thank you.
Uh-huh.
Then Waterworks Department, Mary Armourcost.
Good evening. Kind of a busy month. We finished winterizing everything. We've got quite a few hydrants out in town that hold water, so we've got to go out and drain them before the first frost, but we got everything done before it was really cold. We also repaired our sludge collection system. We finally got the parts in, and we fixed our flock paddles, so everything will be ready to go come spring. We're continuing doing routine maintenance that we do every winter just to have everything ready for the spring. We also had ran a chemical trial for a new pre-oxidant, which was not very successful, so we just got rid of those chemicals. The manufacturer actually took them back for us, so we didn't have to pay for disposal, which was really nice. And main break season has started. We've had a couple, which got back people back on water really quickly.
You're not the weather person, but do you have a target that you have in mind this year?
I want 50 degrees except from December 3rd,
All right.
December 23rd to the 26th.
Okay.
So, no. But we would prefer a warmer winter, or one that the temperatures don't shift a lot and make the ground get hard and soft and move. Any questions? Thank you and have a happy holiday season.
Thank you, thank you. Last but not least, Tammy Smith. Tammy, we put you last because you did such a good job last time cleaning up, you know.
Oh, okay.
If you do a good job
All right.
here, we might move you up in the order.
Okay, well, let's see here. I don't know which would be best. I'm going to start off with the trees. Everybody's been hearing a lot about that. I'm real passionate about it. I'm excited about it ever since I learned that we had that program. So I kind of did a little history on the program, and it started in 2015 with 3 trees that were planted in Meadowood. Then in 2016, 4 were planted in Leonard Park. And then this year, 5 were planted, 2 in Meadowood, 3 in Leonard Park. And then so far, I have received donations for 3 trees for the spring planting. And 14, actually 16 now, since I got here today, interested inquiries that are potential spring plantings as well. So if we keep that up, we should be able to reforest our parks really well, especially Meadowood with all the trees coming out. And I was actually invited to present a tree to one of the families this past Saturday here at Leonard Park, and I was real honored to do that, so that was a lot of fun. And I saw, when I was doing some research on the trees, I saw a term that I thought was kind of cool with all the trees that are being, people are doing plaques, some are memorials, some are just tributes, some are just showing their support, some of the businesses. But it's like instead of a neighborhood, there are neighbor woods. So people could come out and visit our neighbor woods, and probably within the next few years, there'll be a lot to look at. So I thought that was kind of cool. But that's all I have on the trees. Does anybody have any questions?
What kind of trees are being planted?
Previously, it was just oak, but we've added more on the list. I've got 8 on there, and I'm not going to remember all of them probably. A magnolia, tulip, a white oak, red maple, sugar maple, serviceberry, and redbud. I did remember all 8.
I didn't hear you say ash.
Yeah, no, that's a bad word. We definitely don't want those.
That's what the beetle's been eating. It's a little joke. I don't know.
Something else on the trees, I was approached by Carly Macer, who said sometimes she gets trees donated to her and that she may possibly be able to gift those to us. And I think a lot of times those are saplings, and the trees that we're planting in the parks are established 2 to 3 year old trees, not the saplings. I guess they didn't have very good luck with those in the past. But what I would like to see happen, there's a lot of residents who've had ash trees or other trees that have died. And maybe we can somehow work a program out to where we can still get those trees, but offer them to our residents or other areas around town that might need trees. So we can keep that in mind.
Yeah, Tammy, that's a good idea. I think when you do that, we might have a list of recommendations where not to plant them, like next to sidewalks where they eventually,
Absolutely.
maybe not under power lines, things of that nature. But that's a great idea that if we have those saplings, to be able to hand them over to residents. That's a great idea.
Right. And as a resident, I had looked into some of, I think there's actually some codes or something out there regarding how far you can plant them from the sidewalk. So I think that's a good point. We might want to make it a big point to the residents, because not everybody knows that.
Yeah.
So, but anything else on the trees? Okay. The other thing I wanted to mention, I am starting to investigate about the concerts in the park. So that's something new for me. I'm excited doing that. I have earmarked 6 days in the summers, 4 in June and 2 in July for concerts in the park. So I did put out there on the Facebook page asking people's opinions on what what bands they would like to see. So I'm doing some research on that. And I've talked to a lady who manages a lot of the bands that we've used in the past. So she's been real helpful as well. So that's forthcoming. People want to put in any input on that or have any ideas, I'm open and welcome to ideas. So anything on the concerts? Okay. The only other thing, I just want to thank everybody. I've been here for 2 months now, and the time has just flown by, but things have gotten easier, and everybody's been super helpful, and I'm excited to see what more I can do.
Excellent.
And thank you, everybody.
Thank you.
And Merry Christmas and Happy New Year.
Thank you, Tammy. Michelle Leidy's in the audience. If you wouldn't move her to the top next month for that report. She's now the gold standard. Before long, she'll be doing PowerPoints like Chief Fishburn used to do.
No, I never did that.
Okay. All joking aside, we'll move on to our town manager, Jacob Blaisdell.
Yes, thank you, Mr. President. So before I forget, the next council meeting would normally be scheduled for the 4th Monday of the month. This month, that would be Christmas Day. So some people didn't want to be here on Christmas Day for the council meeting. So it has been rescheduled for December 28th at 8 a.m. So I know we'll see you all there. So again, that's December 28th at 8 a.m.
Just to add a little piece to that, I think typically the last meeting of the year, any financial adjustments that need to be made were certain accounts that may have run lower than others, we're able to maneuver some of the budget. That's common, but I'm not sure that we're expecting any of that. Secondly would be board appointments and typically election of officers for the following year. So should be a relatively brief meeting, but we'll make sure. So I just want to make sure we put an agenda out there for what we'll be covering.
Sure. Yep. That sounds good. Also wanted to mention the banners along Crawfordsville Road / Holman Memorial Way. They, as some people noticed, became pretty tattered with a lot of high winds that we had. I just want to mention, you know, it's some of those banners are pretty high up along that way, and we do everything we can to maintain really every aspect of the community, but I certainly appreciate that those are very visible, and I think they caught us and the IMS. They were IMS banners, but I think they were less than a year old, and I think it kind of caught some folks off guard as to how quickly they tore. You will notice that the banners that were kind of tattered and not really looking very good have been taken down. They were taken down on Friday. So it looks a little bit blank right now, but we think it's better than the torn, broken banners flailing around. So just want folks to know, I mean, it's certainly something that was noticed very quickly. It's expensive, very expensive to get crews out there on an emergency basis. So, you know, we try to do what we can, but be budget conscious at the same time. Also want to provide, I don't know if it's much of an update, but the dry run ditch project, that seems to kind of pick up steam and then we lose interest. I just want folks to know that we are still pushing on it. It's still with the state, unfortunately. They had some follow-up questions from a meeting, and it feels like it's meeting after meeting. I know the hope is that we'll be able to move it on to FEMA before or really at the end of the year. Not really getting any promises, but again, I just want people to know that it's might seem like it's died down and no one's talking about it anymore, but we're very actively pursuing it and trying to move it on as quickly as we can. We know it's very important to a lot of folks. And then last but not least, just want to reiterate, Wendell mentioned the Hawk system that was just installed today. Appreciate that the primary users of that are going to be the school children that are in those apartment complexes. Please drive carefully, especially in the mornings, mid-afternoon when kids are going to and from school. So if your commute happens to go through there, especially at those times, please be mindful of that. And with that, I'll turn it back over.
Great, thank you. Any questions for Jacob? Great. Thanks for your report and for your effort, Jacob. I know it's been a really busy last couple of weeks, so thank you. Anything from our attorney, Bob Clutter?
No, sir. Nothing to report.
All right, thank you. Next up would be reports from counselors, and as I move into that, I'd like to make a few comments concerning a report that was released last week by the State Board of Accounts, the Indiana State Board of Accounts, regarding the Redevelopment Commission and its former executive director. In early January 2016, in the course of normal business, our clerk treasurer, Monty Combs, found what he believed to be invoice and financial irregularities submitted by Scott Harris during his time with the commission. Scott Harris is a Speedway resident and an active volunteer in several areas of town, including our schools, the business community, and the Lions Club. He served as an original member of the SRC, the Redevelopment Commission, and was appointed to serve as its executive director for approximately 8 years. He resigned as the director role in the end of 2015. Upon gathering additional information, our clerk treasurer contacted the State Board of Accounts, also known as SBOA, the auditing agency for all government entities in Indiana. On behalf of the town, the clerk treasurer voluntarily requested an audit of the SRC. Our clerk treasurer then also informed the town council and the redevelopment commission of this action. The town council, the clerk treasurer, and members of the redevelopment commission cooperated with the state investigation and provided additional input as requested. The SBOA advised us that confidentiality be maintained until the investigation's conclusion. The SBOA investigation was completed and made public last Monday, December 4th, 2017. The results, which are in its report, were then shared with law enforcement agencies by the SBOA. As a town councilor, myself and my colleagues are called to protect and improve the assets of our town. We're to serve our neighbors and our businesses. We work very closely with members of our boards and commissions and our paid staff through our town manager to develop short and long-term vision and goals, and in developing detailed budgets which are then certified by the state each year. Our clerk treasurer and his staff account for and keep records for all spending, and they store documentation of all ordinances, board and commission meeting notes, and more. The state audits all these activities regularly, and we implement continuous improvements and safeguards to prevent against inappropriate behavior by employees. It was these self-implemented internal controls that found these financial irregularities. When an employee in local government violates a rule or a system put into place to protect taxpayers' assets, it's tremendously disappointed to so many, because this is a place that we live, and we raise our kids, we play in the parks, we eat together at restaurants, enjoy annual holidays, whether it's Memorial Weekend and the events there, or Independence Day, or Labor Day, or Santa arriving on Main Street last week. As human beings, we counselors have felt various emotions over the last 2 years, and we share in this disappointment. Regardless, it's our job as elected officials to protect our taxpayers. We will continue providing information to the state as requested and support the state's request for Scott Harris to reimburse the town fully. I'll go ahead and move to comments from the counselors, but wanted to make sure I shared that before I did call on the other counselors for their monthly report. Any other counselors? Eileen, do you have any comments, just as your general report?
I have nothing this evening, thank you.
Jason?
Nothing for me.
David Lindsay?
After that, we do want to wish everyone, since we'll meet after Christmas, wish everyone a Merry Christmas, and we'll see you before the New Year.
Vice President Matthews?
I have nothing. I think you said enough.
Yeah. So I'll do the same. I know the other counselors feel the same about the community. Wish everyone a Merry Christmas. I look forward to colder days ahead and hope that our sewer lines hold up in spite of that, and snow and those kinds of things as we approach Christmas, in less than 2 weeks, I hear. So with that, it's it is 7:46, and I call this meeting adjourned.